Hey reader, welcome back to the channel. This is Centaur here, and today we are looking at heavy howitzers. We are almost done with our review of the artillery options available to you in bolt action. I should start by saying, as I mentioned in my channel intro video to this YouTube channel, I have biases, and this is probably the biggest bias I have. I'm just gonna be honest with you. I love these things. I mean, even as far back as when I was a very little kid and I was playing with army men, I wasn't nearly as excited about the little infantry guys, the bazooka guys, even the M1 Abrams tank that I owned. I liked my 155 millimeter howitzer. And when I saw that Bolt Action had these, because of course they come about leading into World War II, I got so pumped and, was looking around for where I could buy them because I didn't have a 3D printer at the time. And, found these things, started painting them up. I've used them for years with my Polish armies, my French armies, Belgian armies, pretty much any army that I could. I ran these things. But I'm not going to lie, as we head into third edition, despite the bias that I have and how effective they were for me in second edition, I have to be honest, they're not as competitive now and they're not as strong a profile now as they used to be. So let's go walking through it. We're going to be looking at the stuff that we normally do for these things. You guys have been with me through enough of these that I probably don't need to run through them all. But with a big focus on the things that have changed, noticeably the opportunity cost and the pin generation. Those are the biggest changes that we've seen going into this edition. So, between second and third edition, from a range and rate of fire perspective, really not much has changed. What we find is that you've really seen an increase just in that indirect minimum range of an extra 6 inches, which is true for all howitzers in the game. Still just firing the one attack, always doing a high explosive round. Okay. This means that compared to a medium howitzer, you're looking at an extra 12 inches worth of range, not particularly surprising, an extra 1 inch of high explosive damage, which also increases its penetration value by +1. And you're trading this for about 40 points in second edition to 50 points now in third edition. Okay, so we have seen a slight points increase come off of this from the previous edition. It is a fixed weapon still, so it can only fire to the front, so you'll need to advance if you want to fire beyond that. And of course, at regular and veteran, you get access to a spotter if you want to for an extra 10 points. In third edition, of course, you can technically use other spotters, but that would require you to take other field guns, which is quite expensive, or you could take couple of mortars, but the mortars might also want those. So it is kind of nice that as a big gun that may want to have the option of doing indirect fire, and the fact that an indirect fire shot will ignore cover saves in third edition, it is quite nice that you can take your own spotter. As we look at opportunity cost, though, this is where the problem begins. Now, first of all, I should probably note in passing that there really aren't very many heavy howitzers that have been made by Warlord Games. So this SIG 33 15 centimeter gun for the Germans, by the way, which I own 2 copies of, it is the only one we're actually going to show here because it's the only heavy artillery, as far as I know. Admittedly, comes in a couple of different forms because they have one for like Africa Corps. I think they have another one for the Waffen SS, if I'm not mistaken. They've made so many of these SIG 33 guns with different crews, but it's the only one we're going to be showing. For the rest of this, we're actually going to be looking at a number of 3D prints that are available from various different people online, and I will try to include, Editor Aaron will hopefully include a number of the links to those from Wargaming 3D that you can find, because a lot of people have built them, and they do look really awesome, so you should seriously consider supporting people with these. This is the SCOD 149 millimeter. This is a Hungarian gun. Hungarian heavy howitzer available. It was produced by Wargame 3D, which they do Kickstarters every now and then. Fantastic work. Print really well, which is always really nice. And as we look at opportunity cost, this is the Field Armories British 8-inch gun that was created by, it's by Field Armories, which I believe is run by Richard Humble. If you don't know Richard, first of all, he's in the Facebook group. Two, he does fantastic jobs. His sculpts are really good. I bought this file about a year or two ago, I think. Close to 2 years ago now, I think. Prints really, really well. Still love running it with my Brits, even though it's not competitive, because it just looks really, really good. So, highly recommend. You should totally take a look at that. I'm not going to lie, this is an expensive choice for a field gun. Okay, at 115 points regular in second edition, it was already at the level of, do I really need a heavy howitzer, or can I get away with a medium? But at 140 points regular, plus potentially that extra 10 points for a spotter, I mean, you can get a machine gun laden tank for cheaper than that, right? And it's got the same penetration against bigger vehicles as long as it's not at long range, and it's going to have more shots against infantry, so it's going to be a better clearing tool. And the only problem that the machine gun tank has compared to this is that it can't fire indirect and thus can't remove cover saves. But at a point, if you're doing 4 or 5 wounds to somebody with direct shot machine guns, you might actually sneak more in than trying to indirect fire range in on somebody, right? So the cost is prohibitive. Okay, just on its own, that's going to make it so from an opportunity cost standpoint, it's going to be hard to justify. And you can see it with the math there, right? I mean, you could get 3 regular medium mortars, 3 regular light howitzers, all with gun shields for the same cost, right? And if you're planning on indirect firing, all of these things can indirect fire, and you have about a 50-50 chance that one of them is going to range in on a 6 on a given turn. And if you snap these things with a, German officer, or if you snap them with, something else, a company commander, you could potentially be shooting with all of these, and it would be pretty crazy. And then when you factor in the survivability of it too, like admittedly, you do get 5 crew for this field gun. So like you have a lot of bodies. You can take quite a bit of a substantial beating, which none of these others can, right? They only have 3 persons each. But at the same time, you got 3 of them in 3 places, right? I mean, that's a total of 9 bodies, okay, that you get access to here. Very often, light howitzers don't get access to spotters, right? So, for most nations that you're looking at, you probably wouldn't be able to get spotters on all of them, though, Brits, Australians, Chinese, if you're moving them over into 3rd edition, which the Zern mission pack down in the description below allows you to do. I mean, like there's still a lot of options there that these lighter options possess, not to mention the fact you're getting triple the number of order dice, so you have a better chance of activating when you want to. And so because of that, if it's going to cost so much, if it's going to cost triple the amount of a still, another high explosive, ignoring cover save style weapon, then the price should be worthwhile. And what we're going to look at next is to see whether or not it is. And to start off with, we're going to be looking at pin generation, okay? Because in the last edition, pin generation was actually really good for the heavy artillery. Over there on the side, by the way, you see the M2 Long Tom. This one's also available by Wargame 3D. Although, a lot of people end up making this because, I mean, it just looks awesome. So there's that. But in 2nd edition, because you were doing D6 pins every single time you hit, even if you were only hitting 2 or 3 times per game, you were doing on average about 7 to 10 pins per game, which at 125 points regular is only like 13 to 18 points for each pin that you're getting, which is actually better than the medium howitzer, since the medium howitzer was, only about a third of the cost, but it was doing on average about half the pins. And so because of that, you were actually doing pretty well in terms of pin generation. In 3rd edition, though, because it dropped to D3 pins and it had a points increase, on average, if you were hitting 2 or 3 times, you were only getting about 4 to 6 pins per game, and you're only therefore paying about 25 to 38 points per pin, which is about double what we had in the previous edition. Not particularly surprising, considering that the price went up by a shy bit and the pins went down roughly by half. But it means that this is not a great pin generating machine, especially when you're paying an extra 50 points above what you would have been paying for a medium howitzer, which has the same level of pin generation. It is, however, much like the medium howitzer, and we mentioned this in the video that we did on the medium howitzer as well, that this is one of the few ways to reliably stack multiple pins with a single shot, right? A lot of the HE stuff in the game now, because HE 1-inch and 2-inch are only doing D2 pins, means you might get 2. But as we've been saying as far back as the light mortar video, D2 does not equal 2, okay? It equals 2 half of the time, right? A good bit of the time, and if you're rolling slightly below average, it's doing 1. So if you want to do something reliable, you got to do D3 pins in this game, at least to get started, because then 2/3 of the time, you're doing at least 2, if not 3, right? And so because of that, the place that this would want to fulfill, much like the medium howitzer, is being able to do more than 1, assuming that that unit might then activate right after you. Because if you're doing more than 1 in a single activation, you can guarantee that once they pass their order test, assuming that they're not a British unit with the Iron Discipline or whatever special rule that's coming out with their new army book that allows them to remove 2 pins instead of 1 when they pass an order test, at least you know they're going to be activating with the pin penalty to shooting and the like, right? So now let's take a look at the damage potential and see whether it is dramatically better than we saw from the medium howitzer. And the answer is not really, actually. When you look at the chart over here, you'll still notice that much like the medium howitzer, By damage value 8, you're finally getting close to that about 10% chance that if you say, I'm firing at this unit, and you roll to hit, that you're going to actually get to do damage and serious damage to the target. Okay, now over here on the right-hand side, by the way, you'll see the Dewey Cat Productions Italian 149 millimeter gun. It's awesome. Again, it's huge. And we really love these things. Dewey Cat Productions, by the way, if you haven't bought any files from Dewey Cat, they're fantastic. The geometry is phenomenal. They print really, really well and very easily. I've loved their stuff. You've seen a bunch of them in the background whenever we go to the battle board here. So do highly recommend checking out their channel. You will also find that he has a number of free files available for you on the website. So you can go ahead and take a look and download a bunch of those to see whether or not you like it. But do throw the man some love, give him some money because he's trying to level up our games as we play here. And the man could use some love. So go ahead and send it his way. It'll be good. By the way, I'm not paid by any of these people, in case this is not clear to you yet. This channel is way too small and not cool enough to get sponsors. But I do love and appreciate the work that these guys are doing, from one guy who plays the game to others who play the game and give back to it by providing us with cool minis. So please, by all means, go and patron these guys, even throwing them just a couple bucks to buy a file. It does mean a lot to them. It can be a real pick-me-up to their day. So go ahead and support those guys. But this means that much like the medium howitzer, as we look at the damage chart, damage value 8 maybe is a little bit better than we saw from the medium howitzer, but in general, it's still not great odds until you start hitting that damage value of 7. And while the infantry stats for removing infantry are really, really good, at about a 50-50 chance that when you say I'm firing, you're going to remove somebody in the process. At the same time, these are the same stats as we saw for the medium howitzer. It's exactly as good against infantry. The only technical difference is that because you're using a 4-inch template instead of a 3-inch template, there's a higher chance that you're going to catch more people, but not as many as you think there are. And that's because of the fact that you have roughly 1-inch bases by almost a little bit less than an inch apart, which, up to about a little less than an inch apart, which means you're not actually catching that many more people in a 4-inch template than you are in a 3-inch template. You're adding 1, maybe 2 more bodies, depending on whether they're set up in a long conga line or whether they're ranked up, right? So you're not actually catching that many more bodies. You're not doing that much more damage, despite the fact that you cost an extra 50 points more than your average medium howitzer. And again, while you're pretty likely to do pins to even up through damage value 10 tanks, because even a veteran DV10 tank at 72 inches away, even in that situation where you're firing direct and you somehow have this really long shot, maybe down a road at them, because it's a high explosive shell, you don't -1 from your penetration at long range, which means even a veteran DV10 tank will take pins from this thing. And that is a benefit over your medium howitzer. But how often are you going to run into veteran DV10 tanks, right? Like, they might come up a little more often now, especially now that we've got Panzer A's for Germans, right? You might see them a little more often, and who knows what benefits we might see to veteran Soviet tanks, for example, because I could see them really wanting to pump up the love for the KV series or the IS series tanks, right? But at least for now, we're not seeing a lot of those. So the benefit that we get, even from a pin generation standpoint, as regards it stacking up to the medium howitzer, not that great. Now, when it comes to objective holding, admittedly, this is actually one of the better units you can take, because you're getting 5 men, which is, short of a couple of, really, really big anti-tank guns. This is the most number of men you're going to see. They have typically built-in cover because you can add the gun shield, which is always nice. And you can, you're most likely going to take these regular because you want to have the option of direct fire or indirect fire shooting. And if you're going direct, you probably don't want to suffer that -1 to hit when you cost so many points, okay? This also means you're excellent at doing anti-infantry damage, especially when you're on ambush, because that 4-inch HE template means you're going to cover basically the whole squad most of the time. And since you're going to be wounding on 2s, you're going to be pretty darn reliable as long as you hit. Ambush is just going to make sure you're more likely to hit without having to worry about those cover saves afterwards. Now, this also means you're going to have a long reach to support advancing troops. You could be stationed on one objective. You can easily reach out and shoot to hit guys at another objective, which is always nice. And your ability to reactive fire if assaulted from the front means at least you're better at defending a position from an incoming assault than a mortar is. The drawbacks, of course, are quite substantial. First of all, of course, you are fixed. So you can't move and shoot in the same turn. You can't do a rolling defense, as we've talked about before. You are most certainly mortar bait. They could sick, again, 3 medium mortars on you, shoot at you, and if they only remove you, they've actually made their points back, right? Like, I mean, this is It's pretty bad. Okay. It's pretty bad. But in addition, and again, we've been talking about this, right? Like you're passing up multiple field guns. You're passing up a field gun and potentially multiple infantry sections to take this thing. So you could have more order dice and potentially all of them sitting on the same objective for the same points as you're paying for this one field gun, right? In this case, if they remove this one field gun, that objective might be completely cleared. But if you had, say, even just a medium howitzer supported by two AT rifle teams, now they got to direct fire to three different units. And they got to hit all of these units and remove all these units in order to clear the objective, right? And that's harder to do, especially when you're talking about 8 bodies instead of 5 bodies, right? So even just from a wounding perspective, it gets an awful lot easier. Over here, by the way, you'll see another Dewey Cat file. This is the French 155 millimeter Schneider, but the reason why I mentioned the Schneider is because one, it was used by France, obviously, so a useful one to use it with. But these were also in the employ of the Belgian military, so you could collect this file and use it for your Belgians. You could collect this file and use it for your Dutch, because a number of Dutch guns in, admittedly, the Netherlands proper. I don't think they made it over to the East Indies. But at least in the Netherlands proper, they did use these guns. These were sold to Romania during the interwar period, so you can use this on the Axis side with Romania. Some of them were also captured and used by the Germans, so you could use this as a German captured weapon. I think some of them might have even been employed in the actual German military beforehand during the interwar period, part of an aid package that happened between the two, kind of, again, trying to foster peace following the Versailles Treaty. I want to say some of these also made their way into the Hungarian army. Some of them were used by Norway, even though Norway doesn't currently get access to a heavy field gun. And they were used by the Americans in Guadalcanal because they used tires instead of using spoked wheels, which made them a little bit better when moving through some jungle terrain. They were not heavily used as they went along, but they were given to the U.S. Marine Corps. So suffice it to say, you can use this one file for a lot of things. So may I recommend picking up this file? Again, super cheap, comes from Dewey Cat Productions, fantastic value. You should totally take a look at it. As we look at target prioritization and what you should look at, I guess I'll start with the disclaimer. We have, again, another Dewey Cat file, in this case, a Soviet B4 203 millimeter. If you want a heavy howitzer that feels like a heavy howitzer, it's hard to beat this, right? I mean, you look at it just for scale against everything else that you've seen so far, just against those guys. This thing is a freaking beast. It's so freaking massive. And I believe this is one of the free ones because it's based on the Bergman file. And so, yeah, you can pick that one up. It's phenomenally beautiful. It's a really, really good one. And it just looks awesome. Okay. I mean, so you should totally take a look at it. But toward that end, if you're going to have an awesome gun, you want to get the most value out of it. So what should you be shooting at? First and foremost, shoot at transports. One, because a lot of the time they're open topped, which means you're looking grand. If you do want to lob something inside of it, you're gonna get it, right? If you lob a shot inside of the cab of an open top transport with this thing, you're gonna get it with a heavy howitzer. But even if it isn't, even if you have to fire it at direct, or even if it's fully buttoned up, you're gonna be wounding this thing typically on 3s or better. And it's probably carrying somebody inside of it. And while you don't get to do your HE damage to the things that are inside of it, there's a very good chance you're going to blow that thing up, right? And even if not, you're going to do a good number of pins to the thing, and they're going to pass those along to all the passengers. And all of that is excellent. Of course, it's also useful just to shoot at toes, not because that's going to really help you make your points back, but because generally speaking, it's going to be one shot, one kill, because most people are not running armored toes most of the time, okay? The next thing you want to look at is inexperienced and regular team weapons. And this is not because, again, you're going to make your points back very quickly, but rather because your 4-inch HE template is very, very likely to cover the entire team. So even if they go down, you're wounding on 2s because they're inexperienced or regular. Heck, they could be veteran, you'd still be wounding them on 2s. And even if they go down, you're still likely to wipe out the half that you hit, which means morale checks after they apply all the pins from the heavy howitzer. So it is quite useful. This is also quite nice against artillery choices, especially AT guns, multiple rocket launchers, stuff that want to be able to see things, and that when you drop something on it, you're going to cover the whole team, right? And since they got to keep everybody within unit cohesion, and they got to have somebody near the breach, if you can center this on the breach, you're going 2 inches out from the breach. That's going to cover everything, right? And if they don't have everybody kind of right-ish around the gun, and, they're spreading out in a line to try to take advantage of how many men they have, you're still going to cover quite a few of them. I mean, even if you have a flak 88, right, which is renowned for not being able to get the 7 crew member around that super heavy anti-tank gun. Chances you cover 4 is actually still quite high because they still have to be within unit cohesion. So toward that end, I think artillery are a really good thing to go after, especially since again they aren't going to run away from you; they're going to stay put. Honestly, you're also just really good against any infantry because you're gonna wound on 2s, you're gonna hit relatively easily, which is nice. Honestly, though, you really want to be prioritizing veterans, and the only reason for that is if you're going to be wounding any infantry squad on 2s, it's always nice when they're worth a little bit more when you remove them from the table. Okay, they're also more likely to be carrying specialized equipment because people tend to run veterans as close combat assault units, or they tend to run them as, well, this is the unit that can take multiple light machine guns or any number of submachine guns, right, or whatever. And so they probably loaded them up more with equipment, and so you're more likely to get more out of it. And then after that, I would look at lightly armored vehicles. You're less likely to open them up and can't open them than you might. Again, it's, about a 8 to 13% chance that you're actually going to open them up. And then if you really have to, if there's nothing else better to shoot at, then shoot at serious armored vehicles. Not so much within the context of actually removing them, but more so to roll that D3 pins against them. And hey, if you happen to do damage, fantastic. So what's the change that I would recommend? Over here we have a Hartolia Miniatures German 150 millimeter. This is the I believe it's the Schwere Feldhaubitze or something like that. It's the SFH version. So this is not the SIG 33. It's the one that doesn't have the gun shield already pre-made on it. And so you can pick them up. Hartolia do a bunch of different miniatures. They do terrain. They do all kinds of stuff. So you'll find them all over the place. They also have a My Mini Factory channel in case you want to follow them on Tribes, or if you want to be able to easily pick up their stuff on MMF. That's also available too. But honestly, I think what we need a points reduction. And the simple reason why we need a points reduction is because we have so many mortars running around now, and we have so many machine gun teams running around now, and we have so many tanks running around now that a static field gun is not nearly as competitive as it was in second edition, especially if we're planning on not making a substantial change to the weapon profiles and we're sticking with D3 pins, because it's not a solid pin generator anymore. It is not solidly ignoring cover saves because a direct on shot is not going to do that. Okay. And so what I would do is I would make it closer to a 90 points regular plus potentially a gun shield if you want to purchase the gun shield, because some guns didn't have it. The M2 Long Tom, the SFH 150, 15 centimeter. That one doesn't have a gun shield innately. And then, you'd also pay for spotter. Okay. Just like we had in second edition, you need to pay for some of these things. I think that this would be a good way to run it. This would make it, a good 25 points more expensive than the medium howitzer that I mentioned in terms of the change there, which I feel like for an extra 1-inch diameter and an extra +1 penetration, an extra 12 inches is perfectly reasonable. And it brings it in line with my recommended changes to the heavy AT gun. Now, if HE ignored all cover saves all the time, even if it was just tied to howitzers as the special rule, right? So that way autocannons aren't taking advantage of it, and, cheap spammed low velocity AT guns aren't taking advantage of it, stuff like that. If that was the case, I think the cost would be better. I still think 150 would probably still be pretty high for a heavy howitzer with a spotter. But at the same time, because that isn't the case, I do think it does need a points reduction. I think that we've gone a little too high with this. To be honest, how do we do that? I think an errata to every single book is just problematic. So I don't know that we're going to have this. So we might just need some sort of change to maybe the heavy howitzer weapon profile. But again, I don't want to be too crazy with how we help tanks either. So, we just got to be careful with that. But I do think that until that happens, people may bring this for the novelty of it. I will probably still run them, especially in casual games, just because I love 155 millimeter howitzers. It's my favorite gun. But I'm honest, if I'm going to a tournament and I actually plan to win, I'm not taking these. And that's unfortunate because they look awesome and I own a ton of them. So there's that. But did I miss something? Is there something, that I should have shared about the weapon, either in its physical characteristics or in its actual profile, that makes it better than I presented here? Because I do want to be fair to it, right? I mean, again, I am biased. I do love these. I wanted to present it in the best light possible. And even I'm shaky on it. But if I did miss something, please do let me know down below, because it will make me feel better. And if there's other thoughts that you have on their usage, ways that you can maximize them, please do let us know down in the comments below. And I will see you next time.